Sorry about the technical difficulties this morning, but thanks for joining me, Pastor Amanda, with Hope, Faith, and Joy Daily Devotion. And we are taking a look at chapter 37 this morning. And so, what we discover here is that we are ending one generation's story and we're going to go into the next generation's story. And this is what I think is really cool. If we just read the first couple verses here. Jacob settled in the land where his father had lived as an alien, the land of Canaan. This is the story of the family of Jacob. So, this is the story of the family of Jacob. And immediately, what we find is it says, Joseph, being 17 years old, was shepherding the flock with his brothers. And so, it's the story of Jacob is going to be about his son, Joseph. It's just like the story of Terah was all about his son, Abraham. The story of Abraham is about his son Isaac. And so there's this connection, this family, we're intertwined. And I think it's even important just to say how our lives affect the next generation. And whether it's mother and daughter, father and son, maybe it's cousins. But if you think about it, Jesus, it's about the adoption. The story of Joseph is about the adoption of Jesus. I mean, so this is much bigger than just direct family lines, but your story is about the next generation. You are the story of the previous generation. And it shows how we're all connected. We're all tied together. And that's what we learn just in these first 3 verses. So it's really pretty cool if you ask me. And so now the story of Jacob is now transitioning for us to learn about his son, Joseph. And we find out that Joseph is kind of the youngest son. Well, there's one more that's younger than him, but he's the first son of his favorite wife, Rachel, and he's a little helper. But if you're looking at this text and being honest with yourself, he is an annoying little brat, is really kind of how he comes across. So let's find out a little bit more about this son of Jacob's. So, and then of course, I'm going to point out another little piece is that within this chapter again, we begin to hear it's Jacob and Israel. So Jacob is being called Israel back and forth again throughout this text. And so it says, Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other children, and because he was the son of his old age. And so he made him a long robe with sleeves. Now, this is big for those of us who are into musicals, I guess. And so, this word about this long robe with sleeves is a word that is unclear to us. And there's Greek translations, there's Hebrew translations, and we're just not sure. But this word can mean long sleeves, or it can mean like a bright color, or it could mean many colors. And we actually don't know what the word means, but it has been interpreted as a coat of many colors in which great musicals, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, came out of right here. But how we got this big old Dreamcoat was really, it's just a word we don't know the full meaning of. But we took it and we ran with it. So what we find out is now that he is given this beautiful robe that he can now show off to his brothers. And of course, his brothers become jealous of him. And then Joseph just takes this just one step further. And he begins to tell them his dreams. And in his dreams, they bow down to him. So, and if we think about the culture at the time, it's the eldest son who's supposed to be the one who inherits the most and who gets to run things. And Joseph's like, nope, you're going to bow down to me. And so, of course, there's a little bit of animosity going on among them. And then what we find out is that he has another dream, but this time it's about how his mother and his father and his brothers all bow down to him. And he tells his dad this dream. He goes up to his dad and he's like, "Yeah, you're going to bow down to me." And what we find, though, is where the brothers just hated him. Now, Joseph says, you're kind of getting out of line. He kind of says, "No, I don't think your mother and I will be bowing down to you." But it says that instead of him getting as mad as the brothers, Joseph, it says, "But his father kept the matter in mind." And, but you have to admit, Joseph had his own experiences with dreams and being told things and what's going to happen. And so he has to have a little bit of thought that something might be going on here. But it's still like, no, this is an unlikely scenario. So anyway, so what happens then is the story kind of moves on, but that's our setup of the relationship between everybody. And we know that the brothers are out shepherding their flocks. And one day, Joseph/Israel says, "Hey, go check on your brothers and bring back word about how they're doing." So he goes off chasing them and he finally finds them. But they see him coming from a distance. And one of the brothers decides, "Hey, let's kill him. Like, so we don't have to deal with him, and we'll just say the wild animals got him." Like, that would happen. That was a very normal, natural thing to do. So he's like, "Go." So, but Reuben, it says, comes along and he heard this, and I love the line. He delivered him out of their hands by saying, "Let's not take his life. We'll just throw him in a pit. And then we'll tell our father that he was killed, but we'll leave him alive. We don't want to actually kill him." And so what they did is they took his coat, his very beautiful coat with the long sleeves, and they took that from him, threw him in the pit, and then walked away. Well, it says that as the brothers were having lunch, they noticed a caravan was going by. And one of the brothers thought to himself, "You know what would be even better? Let's make some money off of this situation. Let's go get our brother and sell him to that caravan and sell him as a slave to Egypt. And then we'll make some money and then we'll tell Dad he's dead. But we'll know that he's being taken care of." And so they're like, "We've got a great idea." But what happens is that there's some other shepherds in that area who have walked by already and had the same great idea. So they had pulled Joseph out of the pit and sold him and made some money. So when the sons get back to the pit, they're like so distraught because their brother's already gone. He's already gone, and they now they can't make money, and they for sure have to now convince their father that he's dead. And so it says what they did is they took a goat and they slaughtered a goat, poured the blood all over the jacket, and that's how they prove to Jacob that Joseph is dead, because they show him the coat, the special coat, and it's got the blood on it, and Joseph is without doubt, and he's torn to pieces. And so Jacob tears his own garments, puts sackcloth on his loins, and mourns his son for many days, is what we find. And like no one can comfort him during this time. And then we have just this little bit that tells us, kind of leads us into the next part of the story. It says, "Meanwhile, he had been sold to Egypt to Potiphar, one of Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard." So then we'll find out that this is the next part of Joseph's story and his journey. And anyways, I think it's really just this is one of those family dynamic chapters in which a lot's going on. And we can realize, I think this is one of the things we take from this. We think we're in control of the situation, and really we're not. And God's not mentioned in this chapter at all. I mean, there's nothing going on saying God's being consulted, God wanted this, God made sure this happened. None of that's being said. What we're going to find out is God's able to use all of what happens here to do something even more amazing. But all this bad stuff that's happening, God's not in it. But God's there in it with them. So there's this sense of which humanity has certain amounts of control, and then there's parts where God can do something with it. And I think it's really important when we think about, this suffering, God's making the suffering happen. No, humanity's making the suffering happening, but God is able to do something with it. We just can't see it quite yet. And so within all of what's happening in this crazy family, God does something amazing with it. What's happening in your crazy family right now? I'm sure God's doing something with it. You just got to stay faithful. You're supposed to live in hope, faith, and joy, and you'll see all that God is doing in your life. And maybe you can look in the past and see it too right now. And so that is our scripture for today. Again, I apologize for the technical difficulties. I'll try to get those worked out here in the next day or two. And so thanks for joining me, Pastor Amanda, for today's daily devotion, and I'll see you tomorrow.